Hello and welcome to Coaching State. This is episode 10 in our series, The Subtle Art of Coaching. My name is Tony Husted. I'm a Master Certified Coach with the International Coach Federation, and I am the Chief Coaching Officer for Shipley Coaching. I operate and manage our Level 1 and Level 2 coaching program. Today, we're going to be jumping into a topic that is a non coaching skill that has a massive impact on coaches' abilities to be great coaches. And that skill is note taking. Note taking for coaches is going to be our topic for today. And this topic is one that I've worked on and developed and refined my own process over many years. It reminds me quite a few years ago now, I was teaching in Seattle. I was teaching a level 2 program. And a student, after a demo, I just done a full demo session, raised a hand and said, "Hey, Tony, you asked this question, and then the client said this, and then you asked the next question. I missed that question. What was the question?" And I remember like looking right at this student, this new coach in training, and being like, I have no idea what I asked. And she's like, well, but I need to know. I need to know what question you ask because I want to be able to ask it when I do the breakout, when I go coach this coaching process, when I coach in the way that you've just taught us. And it made me realize, and I asked to see her notes, and it made me realize that she was actually transcribing the session. She was trying to write down every single word. And I think this is a massive mistake that new coaches make. Now, also, we've moved forward quite a bit with technology. So now there's AI, and lots of apps and programs that can be used. I'll be mentioning those later on in the episode. I want to really focus in on manual note taking, taking notes that are going to support you in being a great coach. This is one of those skills that I think if you do it well, your coaching can really benefit from it. And if you do it poorly, even great coaches are missing out on a lot of opportunities to have a deeper impact, to catch things, to notice patterns, to recognize a pattern in my client's behavior, to notice a theme that's been going on in my client's session, to listen what I call through time, to listen to that growth and improvement over time that we talk about when we're talking about coaching. Because not every session, not every one single individual session has the breakthrough, has the aha, has the trumpets blasting moment where the client, it all comes clear. Sometimes that takes 5, 6, 7 sessions before the client gets there. And often there's evidence through those sessions that can support the coach to draw that out of a client. So I want to start big scale for a moment and talk about, organizing my notes and what I do with my notes, how I keep my notes on a broader scale. So I have a binder that I keep, just a 3-ring binder. I take all of my notes on uh, just lined notebook paper or blank paper, printer paper that I 3-hole punch, and I have dividers in my notebook. And I have a divider for each one of my clients. And the first thing when I flip open and go to Joe's tab and flip that over, the first thing that I have is their life wheel. And I always do a life wheel when I start out with clients because I want to get the broad scope of who they are, what they're about, what their background is, what are other influencing factors that are going to influence the coaching's relationship, what are pieces and parts that I need to know. Next, on the second page is the document that I create, some notes that I take during the intake session. So that first session when my client is paying me, I also am doing some goal setting. I'm setting an agenda, what some coaching schools might call a contract, an agreement. What are the areas that I'm going to be coaching on? I do not like to coach on just a single topic with any client because you'll coach out very quickly. I like to have multiple topics that I'm coaching a client with. And this is where I have those down. And then I do a quick exploration of each of those. That needs to be second for me because I need to be able to quickly reference it back when my client comes and they start talking about something that we've not talked about at all. I need to be able to go back and quickly access, okay, when we started our coaching relationship, we agreed we were going to coach on these topics. This seems to be new. Is this something you'd like to add? Does this fit in a way that I don't understand? And just to make sure, because I want to keep and maintain, create and maintain, establish and maintain is the word I'm looking for, establish and maintain my agreements. And so if I've got this container of, hey, this is what we're going to be coaching on in the next 6 months, and then all of a sudden the client's over there, 500 feet the other direction, I need to be able to check in. Just like within a coaching session, an individual coaching session, if we agree to coach today on building confidence in public speaking, and halfway through the session, the client is talking about their physical fitness and losing 20 pounds, I need to check that. Hey, Joe, I'm noticing that we started off today, we agreed to explore and build ways that you could build your confidence in public speaking. And now you're talking about weight loss. Is this something you'd like to reorient to? Would we like to go back to the original? Or maybe there's a connection here that I am not quite seeing. So I want to be able to check that. So I need to have that. Then after that is just simply with the most recent first, my notes from individual sessions. Now I take notes for me, but most importantly, I take my notes for me to support the client. They're not my personal notes that I'm, hoarding away. Although I do not give my notes to clients. I do not give my notes to clients. I do not type up client notes and send them over. Now, AI has brought us leaps and bounds from where we were 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago when I started as a coach. A lot of clients asked for the notes. They wanted me to type up professional notes and send them over. And I realized very quickly with 12 to 15 clients, and not being a very great typist, I have to admit, this took a lot of extra time. And so I started recording. I did audio recordings with permission, of course. Clients should never be surprised. So I would record the sessions. And I got this idea from a friend of mine named Nick. He actually would send the recording over to his clients and then ask them to listen back and take their own notes. And he actually encourages people to listen to it multiple times. So that's the habit I got into was I would take notes for me. And the reason they're not for the client is because they're in shorthand. A lot of it probably looks like gibberish. I don't have the best handwriting in the world. And as I'm taking notes in a session, I'm not worried about having pretty handwriting, for example. So I would take notes for me. I would let my client know, hey, we're going to audio record this if that's okay with you. I'll send over the recorded session for you. You can review it and take your own notes as necessary. Now, again, we've got AI today. AI, there's lots of AI note takers. Zoom has even a built-in note taker now. And again, I'll come back to those a little bit later and talk about some of the benefits and pros and cons of that. So life wheel, that's the snapshot of my client. So when I'm getting ready to jump into a session, I notice I've got 5 minutes to a session. I pull open my binder and I look at the life wheel and I step into my client's world. I remind myself, this is Joe. He's married. He's got 2 kids. He works in marketing. There were some opportunities to coach here and here. Then I flip to the next page and I see, okay, these are the topics that we're coaching on. Then I flip once again and I go, what did we coach on last time? What was the topic? What was the outcome? What were the commitments that my client made? Is there anything I need to follow up on? Which are at the bottom right hand corner of my notes, which is your first tip. I always keep everything fairly structured. So I'm always putting commitments and check in information in the very bottom right hand corner of my note page so that I can always access that really, really quickly. So as I open the new session with my client today, I can check in on anything that I need to check in on. Okay, so let's jump to some general note taking things. I use a lot of shorthand. And the reason I do is I don't want the note taking to get in the way of my coaching. I don't want me to be head down, note taking, note taking, note taking, and my clients sitting there waiting for me because I'm taking a whole bunch of notes. So I do certain things that I think really save a lot of time. I don't use any filler language. I'm pulling out the keywords. I'm pulling out the big things. And if you've watched some of our other videos in this series, you'll know I'm big on backtracking. Backtracking being taking 1 or 2 keywords, pulling those out, and inserting it into the next question. And so I note what are the words that I'm backtracking. I use the exact word my client says confidence. I give it back. What would having confidence do for you? I would only jot down confidence Now, also, that's a values word for me. And values are all about the motivation. We call it talking about the willpower conversation. So, and this has a big impact on our clients' motivation. When they're connected with their values, they tend to not have a motivation problem. Determination isn't a challenge for them. So, I keep track of my values. So, one of the things I do is every time my client says love, peace, joy, confidence, caring, legacy, I underline it. So as I go back to my notes, I can very quickly identify, oh, love, flip the page, love, 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 love. Hey, this is a really important value. I can start to see the pattern very quickly. Another thing that I do whenever I run across what I call a dissatisfaction, now, a dissatisfaction is a future coaching opportunity. I'm coaching my client on confidence in public speaking, and they mention that, oh man, I wish I was in a little bit better shape. I'm going to write it off to the side, better shape, and I'll put a square around it. I really love doing this when I'm doing my life wheels. As I'm doing my life wheel, anything negative, a dissatisfaction, or ooh, I'd really like this, a desire, I'll put a square around it so that I have these future coaching opportunities. If my client, and this will happen to you at some point, client will show up 7, 8, 9 sessions into a coaching relationship and go, oh, Tony, I don't know what to coach on today. Maybe I'll just work on what I've got and let's get back together next week. Don't fall for this, everybody. Do not fall for this. Stop that client right there in the tracks and go, oh, that's okay, Joe. I have several things noted down that we could coach on. When we first started, you mentioned that the relationship with the in laws wasn't where you wanted it to be, that you'd always thought about getting that master's degree, that you wanted to lose 20 pounds, that you wished your spiritual life was a little bit more fulfilling. Which of those would be a great topic for us to delve into today? Don't let the client off, because here's what will happen. If I let the client off because they don't have something that they've thought of to bring to the coaching session today, they're going to do that again the next week. It's really common. They'll probably even just ghost you that next week, or they'll drop you an email or text saying, "Oh, Tony, I still don't have anything to coach on. I'll just see you next week." The next week they ghost you. The following week they're asking for a refund and taking a break from the coaching or canceling the coaching contract. So don't let them off. Get them onto another topic that they have already expressed as an opportunity for them to have more of what they want in their life. So I put a square around any type of dissatisfaction. Now, I also use a lot of symbols. I use, if somebody says, oh, I've got really high confidence in this area, I do an up arrow with confidence. That's the up arrow being high. Oh, my motivation is really low. I do a downward arrow, down motivation. If they're, oh, I'm increasing the number of calls I make every day, I'll put an arrow up and to the right that's increasing. And come up with your own. I've got a decreasing arrow. I often draw double-ended arrows that might connect something here to something that's said over there, something that came up in the first 5 minutes with the action step. I'll draw a connecting arrow so I can see that there was some type of connection between those. I'll also sometimes go through and highlight a few things. This is usually after the session. I don't usually do any highlighting during the session, but I'll highlight, like if I notice a theme, I'll highlight it to kind of keep track of it, but then to be able to easily access it to be able to draw it out in a future coaching session. Now, again, I take minimalistic notes. I take the absolute minimum amount of notes that I can take to recreate the conversation in my mind. Now, I don't need every detail. I don't need everything. What I need, first big thing I really want to make sure that I take a note of is the agenda, the contract, the agreement. What are we coaching on in today's session? And I actually write this one out pretty much word for word. Confidence in public speaking, I write it out because I may need that later. Well, I will need it later in the session, especially if my client starts to wander off on the topic. Joe, we set out today to build the confidence in public speaking. I need to be able to have it right there. So that's one thing I definitely write down. I mentioned it before, keywords, especially words that are around their values, around their identity. When they're talking about making a choice, they're going to say yes to this and no to this. When they describe their vision to me, I want to make sure I capture that vision. When they make a commitment to an action step, again, bottom right hand corner for me, commit any type of commitment or things that I need to follow up on, I'm going to jot it down in there. If they're talking about a skill and a strategy, I want to capture just enough words that, again, I can put it together. I could piece it back together mostly in my mind, even a month, 6 months later, I could go back and kind of follow the pattern. Okay, I know what the agenda was, I know what kind of questions I ask, and I can start to put it back together in my mind. Um, I do, if a client uses a certain phrase, use some type of like a spoken meme kind of a thing, they use a certain phrase repeatedly, I'll jot down the whole phrase so I can use it back as a form of rapport building. Any type of aha, insight, or epiphany, I'm going to jot that down and I'll usually put a star by it so I know, hey, there was a key moment here. Stars for me are a key moment or a check mark also. Sometimes there'll be a key moment, but if my client's like, oh, good question, wow. And then they come and they're like, oh, I've never thought of it this way. Never thought of it this way. And then what they say, I jot it down again in minimalistic notes. If you coach using models, so if you're using a specific model, uh, I encourage you to take notes in the shape of the model. Now, for example, I use a process where you go up and you come back. That's the structure of the model. And so I take my notes literally. I start on the bottom left, I take my notes up, then I move over to the right and I make my notes down. If you use a model that has three perspectives in it, I'll take my notes in three different perspectives. I'll put it into the shape or the flow of the session so that I can follow along with that. In our level 1 and 2 programs, we talk about sensory systems, the importance of sensory language that our clients are speaking about, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, seeing, hearing, and feeling. So anytime that my clients are mentioning, oh, it looks like, I'll put a little V for visual and I'll put a circle around it. Oh, it feels so comfortable. Kinesthetic, comfortable. That's the feeling word. So I use again that shorthand to keep track and I look again for patterns. If every time I ask a visual question and my client answers with a kinesthetic, I can start to notice that pattern. I can look at the notes afterward and go, wow, this client had 20 auditory references to sensory system. They must speak to themselves. They've got a lot of internal dialogue going on. So it lets me know that there's something going on. You could also take notes. I do this from time to time around if you use any type of personality assessment or temperament assessment. Here at Shipley Coaching, who I partner with extensively, we have something called the four lenses. And the four lenses are four colors that are a temperament. They're a temperament assessment. It's people's natural bents. And it's four colors. And so if I have a client who is uses a lot of language that's indicative that points to, say, a blue temperament. A blue temperament is somebody who's a real people person. They're a connector. They want to work as a team. They have to check in with everybody on a personal note before you can get down to business. I'll note, I'll put a little blue. I'll just write blue off to the side. And then when I hear it again, I'll write blue again. And what, again, just one or two words of what they said after that so that I can notice, okay, these are some blue traits that are starting to come out. I can look for that pattern recognition. And if I can identify that my client is a blue, I know for myself on the next session, if it's a new revelation, I can start out with a much more personal check in, such as, how's your family doing? What's been going well in your family life? Even better. So I know, but if I have somebody that's the opposite end, a green temperament, which is very much about knowledge and information and skill mastery, I don't need to check in on their family. I don't need to check in on how they're doing personally because they're not looking for that connection. They're looking for expertise. They're looking for that demonstration of mastery of skill. So I'm going to be more technical. I'm going to jump more to the things conversation than the people conversation with that person. Again, to serve them. There's a whole nother conversation that I'll be doing in a future video where we talk about how to build rapport, but then how to create awareness. How do you draw out increased awareness by being aware of these types of traits. But I'll save that for another one. So action plans is a big one. Anytime a client again is saying actions, I'm going to jot those down. And then also many coaches, I don't do it a lot, but I will if it's very, very strong. If a client has a big shift in their tone, in their tempo, in their energy, in their physiology. All of a sudden, they sit way back, lean back, close their eyes, and start doing something like this. I'm going to make a quick note in my notes just to be aware of that, so I notice if they continue to do that, or if there's something that they do that then seems to block them. So, like if they do this and then they have an epiphany, they lean way back, have an epiphany, and then they come back later, when I've got this really deep question I want them to really ponder, I might say, Joe, take a moment and just sit back, close your eyes, open your arms, and ponder this. Because I know this is a resourceful posture for my client. So I will note those sometimes. I know some coaches are really big on that. Another thing that I do, this is kind of not what I note, but how I use my notes, is I will sometimes use it as a tool for my own thinking. I do a vast majority, 99% of my coaching is done through Zoom. And so I use my tools. I use my notes as a tool often. So if I need a moment to collect my thoughts, to like, okay, where am I going next? What am I about to draw out? Where do I really want to focus in on? I'll pick up my pen and I'll look down and I'll move my pen like I'm taking notes. Now they can't see my pen usually, it's out of the frame, but I'll move my pen so it looks like I'm taking notes, and it makes it comfortable for my client to just to wait. They're okay with the silence because they know that I'm taking some notes. And if they see me taking extensive notes, like writing for a moment, I'm only talking 2 to 3 seconds here. I'm not talking 10, 15, but just a few seconds for me to gather up my thoughts and like really decide where to go. It makes that silence more palatable. So I use my notes as a tool as well. Um, so those are some ways in which I take my notes. I can usually get an entire coaching session on one page of notes, just the front of the page. If you find yourself taking more than that amount of notes, you're probably overtaking, you're probably overextending yourself. You're taking too many notes. I do normally 45-minute sessions, and I can easily fit it onto a single page unless my client is really a talker. But I tend to find myself not doing that. I'm usually about 3/4 of a page for a 45-minute session, and that gives me plenty of what I'm going to use. Another use of my notes, uh, how I use my notes. In the new core competencies, there's mention of reflective practice, and so I often use this notes as a post-session reflexive exercise. I'll go back, I'll get go on with my day. Then later on in the day, I'll come back to the notes. I'll read through them. I'll remember what happened and reflect for myself. Okay, what were opportunities that I could have taken? Where did I maybe not get the best? Where did I really not get that I wanted to get? What worked well? What are those temperament pieces? What am I going to do next time to be even better for this client? How can I improve? And so I use those as my notes for that post reflection, post session. I did mention earlier AI. There's so many AI programs out there. I'm not going to get into recommending certain AI programs, but please note there's a ton of them out there. There's a lot of great ones. There's a lot of great ones that will give you a transcript so you can get the full transcript of the session to give to your clients. Uh, there are even now lots of programs that will kind of note take for you. They'll summarize it. It'll break it up. The Zoom, I think, is probably the most popular one. Zoom has the AI assistant. I've been using that, just kind of testing it out. The big thing I think that's missing from AI and why I don't rely on AI to take the notes is that I've yet to find a program that really gives insight. All of the AI programs are pretty decent at the client said this, the coach asked this, the client committed to this, and the coach committed to that, to following up on it. What I rarely have seen, if any, I don't think I've even seen it yet, is like going back and looking at something that the AI bot created that is like this, your client repeated this word 4 times, and when combined with this, you should really do this next time you coach them. Like a true insight, something like really unique and different, something that I'm not seeing. I'm yet to see that insightfulness for AI. So I don't really use it for those purposes. I think it's great to be able to send my clients the transcript of a session. I still do just audio. If we do use Zoom now, I can send them the transcript of that or the AI notes for that, either way, just depending on what my client's request is. But I don't use the programs to um, help me be a better coach. Now, if there is a program that you're using, an AI program out there that you're using, and you're like, wow, Tony, this one gives me all kinds of insights, please drop down below into the comments and tell me about it. I'd love to hear about it. Or feel free to email me. My email is Tony, Tony, at coachingstate.com. Tony at coachingstate.com. Drop me an email. Let me know what tool you really like from the AI tools that are out there that might give a really great insights, something that's deeper than just pure observation. I've yet to see that. Uh, Last note on notes. Last point on the notes here. I do my best. With what's in my means. I have a locked filing cabinet. At the end of my coaching day, I throw my file. I throw my notes into the filing cabinet. I lock it. I do want to keep my clients' personal information as secure as I can. I want to do my due diligence. We are not, as coaches, HIPAA. We don't have to be HIPAA compliant. Although some coaches are really adamant about that, they want to be HIPAA compliant, et cetera. This is another reason why my notes are kind of cryptic and don't have too many details, because I don't want anything to be in there that could be used against my client or me in the future. I do, after about a year, I'll check in. If I've coached somebody for 6 months, I reach out to them after 6 months. I reach out to them after a year. If at the year point, I normally ask my clients, hey, would you like to pick back up with coaching? If they tell me not now, their notes go in the shredder. And I have a portable shredder here. I just drop all the notes right in there. And then I don't have to worry about the security of that information anymore. If they say, oh, give me a couple months, then I'll hang on to the notes. But I don't keep them for too long because I just don't want that information floating around out there. Um, so that is everything I have for you today. Again, if you've got a great AI tool that has some insights that gives you additional clarity, please drop that in the comments or email me. If you have some other note-taking tips, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear how you take notes differently, and I'd love to learn from you as well. I look forward to seeing you in future episodes of The Coaching State, the subtle art of coaching. I hope you have a great day and happy coaching.